Welcome to my new series where I will be going over tons of different applications. Don't know what I'm going to name this series yet, and I'll rate them. So, in this episode, we are going to do music players. Half of this video was filmed on GNOME, but then I had an issue with GNOME and I had to switch to Plasma. And some of the Qt music players did experience a little bit of issues on GNOME. However, on GNOME, I did set all of the Qt themes to Breeze inside Qt5CT. But then when I switched to Plasma, I just switched to the Adapta Plasma theme and Qt theme, and then I also use the adapted GNOME theme. So, yeah. Quad music players are allowed if they can play local files, but I'm not including music players that are just Quad music players, because that would make this video super long. Some of these are from the Arch repositories, some are from the AUR, some are app images, and one of them was a snap, and then some were actually compiled from source, so those were painful. There are also timestamps in the description if you want to skip to a certain music player. I wish there were a lot I wish I could have tried that I couldn't get working, such as XMMS, and there's another one, because I had segmentation faults. Some of them I even wrote the script for and then had segmentation faults the next time I tried to run them, so that was annoying. This video also took me forever to make. It took me 2 weeks to download the music players and write the script for this video. It's probably going to take me forever to edit this video, so because of that, please like the video and consider donating with the link below. Alright, let's get started. Now, I wasn't able to get Amarok working in GNOME. This seems to only work in Plasma, so keep that in mind. Now, Amarok has been one of the most popular Qt music players for some time now, but I haven't had the best experiences with it. For starters, I couldn't get it running in GNOME and I had to use Plasma. It also seems to be expired a lot by the Oxygen theme, even though Breeze has been out for a while. And because of this, you have Oxygen buttons right here, and stuff like that, but then you also it also had issues of dark themes, like as you can see right now I'm using a dark theme and it's got dark text on a dark background. The UI is very simple. It's got media controls on the top, your collection on the left, it's got your media or your context of lyrics and your current track, and then your playlist on the right. Now, as for features, this does have plugins, which is cool, and it does support some online music services, such as Banshee, Gpotter, Magnitude, and Podcast Directory. I guess not all of those are music services, but yeah, and it also is a good music player if you want to have support for embedded lyrics, although by default it cannot do online lyrics. It also can do crossfading. However, crossfade's kind of way too long. It's like 2 seconds when you pause it, and if you pause and unpause it over again, it can cause some issues. Overall, while this is a good music player, only use it if you are a KDE user and you use the Oxygen Qt theme, because this does not work well on any other Qt themes, and it's pretty buggy. So, AquaLung is the first music player I tried. I struggled to get it working in Manjaro, and in my opinion, it wasn't worth it. It plays music pretty well, but its interface is pretty bad. For starters, it has a feature called skins, which seems pretty cool to begin with, right? It's just, most of the skins suck. Just look at Metal. Metal looks like it's the Unreal Tournament menu. That's what this looks like. However, even with the skins, it still obeys GDK theming for the buttons and stuff. And because of this, if you're not using a dark theme, this is going to look really bad. It also doesn't detect your music folder, which means you have to select all of your music yourself, which might sound fine considering that it saves whenever you close the program and reopen it. However, this is going to be very annoying if you have a giant library. It does support CD audio and podcasts, and I did see that it had internet radio support on the website, but I couldn't figure out how to enable it, and there's gapless playback, but despite these features, I would not recommend AquaLung as a music player. aTunes is an interesting one. This one is written in Java and it doesn't use GDK, Qt, or Electron. Because of this, it does not integrate well with the system, and vital features such as window snapping doesn't work. As for the interface, there is media controls on the top, a quote repository on the top left, which shows all of your artists and albums if you click on the drop down, and then under it there's a list of all of your songs related to what is selected. And then to the right of the repository and the songs list, there is your playlist. And then there's info on your right. And there's song info, artist info, similar artist, and I think a YouTube video. Now there's also album info, but that seems to crash aTunes, which is a vital bug. Speaking of bugs, someone should call Exterminator because this program is full of them. On the bright side, the interface is a little bit customizable, and you can set a system interface if it wants to load. There is a system interface, which I just enabled, but it looks hilariously bad, and it's very buggy, and there's errors. There is also, in the Substance interface, you can choose themes for Substance. I like aTunes Dark a lot. I'll show you what it looks like in a second. This is aTunes Dark, and it actually looks pretty nice, although again, I'm having errors from launching. Oh, it's because it's going over to album info by default. As for features, this does have Last.fm support. It has support for radios and RSS feeds, as well as a CD ripper. However, again, this is super buggy, and I had a tough time getting this working on Arch. The AUR package didn't work, so I had to compile this one for Source, and it was not worth it, because again, I'm getting errors as I'm talking. Next, we have Audacious, and its UI is pretty simple. You got media controls on the top, your collection on the left, and it shows your genres, albums, and artists on this left panel. It shows your songs from whichever you clicked on. So I clicked on Pearl Jam, for example, and it's showing my Pearl Jam songs. And then to the right of it, it shows all of the songs matching your criteria. There's also a Now Playing tab to see your queue, but I prefer the Library tab. And if you go in the Settings interface, there's a hidden Winamp interface, and then there's a search tool. And there's skins for it too. Now this is a cool feature, but I can't really think of any uses for this. This music player also has plugin support. There are a lot of plugins that aren't shown in the main UI, for example. There's visuals, which look nice if I played music. And yeah, most of the plugins open its own window, and that is kind of a problem if you want this to integrate well, but it is still cool that there is plugin support. Overall, if you're looking for something simple, maybe give this one a shot, even though I kind of like its Winamp interface, even though I can't think of a use for it. But yeah, check this one out. Next we have Banshee. Now Banshee isn't just a good music player, but it's a good full-on media player. This media player actually lets you choose between music, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, radio, and online media. However, this program feels like it was primarily made for offline music, so because of that, I'm considering this a music player. This shows your formats on the very left, and then to the right of your formats on the top left, you have all of your artists, which shows your albums in a grid, and then all of your songs on the bottom. It also has media controls and a search bar on the top, which is cool. Banshee is very feature-rich. It's got support for Last.fm, as well as support for downloading stuff from the Internet Archive. It's got podcast support and equalizer, and the ability to automatically download music from Amazon and eMusic. This one also has support for extensions, which allows you to have several plugins, and yeah, although there might be some small graphical issues on Plasma and other Qt desktops because this is GDK based. However, overall Banshee is a very good music player, and I would highly recommend this one. For our next music player, we have Byte. Now, Byte is a elementary app, which means it is probably going to be very hard to install on distributions that are not elementary. At the time of making this video, Byte is not even in the AUR or as a Flatpak yet, so I had to compile it from source myself, and tracking down the dependencies for this music player was tricky. Byte also had an issue on non-elementary GDK themes, where this next track thing on the bottom with your playlist was transparent, although this works fine on the standard elementary theme. And because of this, as well as the other 3 elementary music players I'm going to be showing in this video, I would definitely recommend using the elementary OS GDK theme as I am right now. The interface for Byte works best as a small window. The media controls are on the top, as well as the song info. Then there are categories you can get, like songs, albums, favorites, radios, which is a nice touch, artists, and playlists. And yeah, this application supports radio streams, and they are very easy to add. All you have to do is click the radio button, and then search for something. I'm just going to do rock, and it will show all of your radios, so nice touch right there. Also, if you go in the preferences, there are 3 themes, pink and white, which is the default one, black, which is also pink, and I like that one, and in my favorites, green and black, which is my favorite. It looks very nice. This is what it looks like. Yeah. The UI of this application feels a lot like an Android application. This would be the perfect music player for the Librem 5 or the PinePhone or something like that. Although, unfortunately, since this is an elementary app, this probably won't work very well on the Linux phone. Of course, unless elementary OS decides to develop a phone OS, which probably isn't going to happen anytime soon. Overall, if you're an elementary user and you're looking for kind of a minimal music player to just have in the corner of your system, check this one out. Clementine is a Qt music player, and this one is one of the most feature-rich music players. It's got a sidebar to the left with tabs, then a list of songs next to that sorted by artist and an album. And there's also media controls on the bottom, and your list of songs depending on what your category is. As I said earlier, this one's super feature-rich. It's got extras like rain, all glory to the Hypnotoad, make it so, and kittens. Not really sure why you'd want those, just an extra tossed in. There's also an equalizer if you need that. There's visuals, which if I were to play a song, and then these visuals would actually look very good. There is integration for a lot of online services, such as Spotify and cloud storage services such as Dropbox. There's also support for podcasts and internet radio. As a matter of fact, a long time ago, Clementine is how I discovered the service Icecast for listening to radio. There's also the ability to use a Wii remote as a remote, which is a cool feature, and the ability to use a custom Android app as a remote. There are also some hidden features, including lyrics, if you head over to song info. Like if I start playing a random song, it would show lyrics in the song info, as well as wiki about the song you're playing and stuff like that. And of course, there's also artist info. Overall, this is a very good music player, and this is one of the only Qt music players I would recommend to GNOME users because of how feature-rich it is. Alright, so for our next music player, I got DeadBeef, which is another GDK music player. Now, this is just a list of songs by default with a media controls at the top. Now, there are some cool features, like if you right-click and you can look a song up on Last.fm, and then, as you can see, it just loaded up in my browser. And, yeah, that's a kind of a cool feature if you want to learn about a specific song. There's also a hidden converter you can access by right-clicking your song again and then hit convert. And there is also a equalizer if you go in the view in an equalizer. Now this is kind of a more advanced equalizer. It's kind of seems like it was made for more tech-savvy people, because if you go into presets, by default there aren't any. So yeah, interesting equalizer. Now if we go in the preferences, as you can see, there is support for plugins, and yeah. Now I'm personally not a big fan of its default interface. I was watching videos of cool customizations people have made for DeadBeef, although I wasn't able to figure out how to create a lot of those customizations, so yeah. Overall, if you're just looking for a simple music player that will just work, maybe go for this one. Next we have Deepin Music Player. Now this was made for the Deepin desktop, however it does work well on most other desktops. Now at the top we just got a search bar, and then the interface is just a list of songs sorted by your album name, although you can also sort it by title and artist, but I recommend album name so that your album is in order when you, like when you want to listen to it, your album is in order. Now, I like how the media controls have like a nice transparent look on the bottom based on the album artwork. Now, if you go into dark mode, your title bar, your window controls, I guess, also have a nice transparent theme. And yeah, this is a very beautiful music player. This also does support playlists, and if I were to play a song, it would have lyrics support if you click on LRC, although it doesn't want to work right now. It might be embedded only. I can't remember because I didn't write down that in the script. Overall, this is a very simple music player. If you're just looking for something simple but good looking, maybe check this one out. Next we have Dusk Music Player. Now this one kind of sucks. So you play your music by just opening up the folder that your music is in. So I would do, if I want to listen to The Cure, I'd have to click on the folder to add all the songs. And then after you do that, it does play in order from tracks. But it is interesting. There is a area to toggle your theme, but that isn't working properly for me. You can see your queue by hitting the hamburger menu icon right here. Overall, this is simple. It's very buggy. Electron based. I did get this as an app image, but I would not recommend this music player. Alright, next we got Elisa or Elsa, I don't know how to pronounce it. So this is a Qt based music player. This is probably one of the most beautiful Qt based music players. It's got your media controls on the top. On your left, it's got your now playing, recently played, frequently played, albums, artists, tracks, genres, and files. Now for now playing, it just shows your playlist and then your song info. If you go into albums, it has a grid for your music, same with artists, and then track is just a list. And yeah, it's a very nice looking music player. If you're on Plasma, this is a very good looking music player. It is not that customizable, so some more options would have been nice. But overall, I like the way it looks. I like the simplicity of it. It isn't very feature rich, but it just works very well. And overall, this is probably going to be the music player I use next time I go onto Plasma. Now the next one we have is Exaile. Now Exaile is yet another GDK-based music player, but I'm not really a huge fan of its interface. It's got 6 tabs, a collection tab, radio, playlists, files, lyrics, and a group tagger. Now lyrics I think are just embedded lyrics, so because it's not showing my actual song lyrics. Now, by default, shows the collection menu, which can be sorted 11 different ways. There's artist, album, album, genre, artist, genre, album, date, album, artist, date, artist, artist, date, album, and then album, artist, date, album. Now, I just gonna stick with album for this video. So then it will list your albums, and then there will be a drop down of all your songs. Then to the right, we have our playlist, song info on the top of the playlist, and our media controls under it. Very simple UI. Now if we go into preferences, there are actually a bunch of plugins. So you can get covers from places like Amazon, Last.fm, and MusicBrainz. There is a karaoke plugin, which seems interesting. There's obviously Replay Gang. Now there is a feature called Lyrics Mania, which doesn't seem to work for me. I don't know how it works. And there's also a Lyrics Wiki plugin, and there's a Wikipedia plugin for song info. There's Icecast radio support, Jamondo. Yeah, there are quite a few plugins, which is nice. There's also podcasts, podcast support, and Last.fm support, as well as radio stations. Now, if we go into radio, here's how it works. It's got Icecast and Sama FM, and then we could just choose the radio based on the folders. So I wish there was a search for radio, because it might be a pain to scroll down through all of the lists for each category. But other than that, the radio thing works pretty well. Check this one out if you are interested in it. I don't hate it, this one, but I don't like this one either. But yeah, just check this one out if you're interested in it. Next we got Foobar 2000, which is definitely one of the best names for a program that I have ever seen. Foobar 2000 sounds so futuristic. But pizza loving nerd, I hear you furiously typing in the comment section. Foobar 2000 is not on Linux. Well, you can download a snap that runs Foobar 2000 through Wine. Now, some might think it's a bad idea to run their music player through Wine, and because it's running through Wine, it has that Windows 95 look we all enjoy. However, it is themable if you go into preferences, you go into, I think it's display, and then default user interface. There's a quick setup feature, and from here you can kind of choose your interface and your colors. Now by default you just have to add your songs, it's just standard. However, if you go into my favorite, album list properties, tabs, and visualizations, and then choose a color, you do black, yellow, white, system default, whatever you want. I'm going to do, let's do black. Now you kind of have a pretty, I wouldn't say good looking, just it works music player. Let me add my albums. Here we go. My albums didn't open, I don't care. Oh, I have to configure it from the media library. But, let me do this really quickly. Here we go. So with this interface that we just set up, it has my albums right here, my playlist right here, and then visuals right here. So as you can see, if I were to play a random song, if it wants to play, that is, there would be visuals. It's just it doesn't want to work on this video. It was working when I wasn't recording. Anyways, yeah, that's Foobar 2000. Good music player if you're on Windows, but since it's running through Wine on a Snap, I don't know about this one. Next we have Gmusic Player. Now this is yet another GDK based music player, but the reason I like it is because it's very customizable. So even though its stock UI kind of sucks, it has layouts, and there are almost 30 different layouts you can choose. If yes, I counted all of these. Now by default it uses list, library, and context, which is what I'll just be going over because that's the default. This video would be super long if I went over every layout in Gmusicbrowser. So anyways, by default it's got your list of your actually your playlist on the left with your media controls and album info above it. But then it has sort of an iTunes layout where it's got your album, your artists, your saved, and then the songs for like your album or your artist, depends on what you're doing, below it. And then there's a context tab which can show your lyrics and album pictures, which is kind of cool. But you'd probably not want to use this interface by itself. You'd probably want to get this music player because of how customizable it is. So if we head over the layouts, I'll just preview some. You can make it look like iTunes. Now it looks like this, although this doesn't look like iTunes. There's one for RhythmBox, which I guess looks nice. I'll do one, we'll do Cons, this one, interesting looking. There are several different layouts you can do. You can do Shimmer. Yeah, it's getting even more interesting now. Garage, EPC, ooh, I like this one. Yeah, there's several layouts you can choose. I think you get the point. This music player also has support for plugins. So there's an album info plugin, there's lyrics, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And if you go into audio, you can change your backend audio device for playing music. So by default, use a GStreamer. You can use MPG123 as well as OGG123, MPlayer, MPV. There's also an equalizer with an Icecast support, well, an Icecast server support. And yeah, so use this one if you are looking for something you can customize a lot. Next we have Goggles Music Player. Now this one isn't Qt or GDK based, which means it won't integrate with your system, although at least it's better than aTunes because it has window snapping. But it does have a theme maker if you go into Appearance. So you could technically customize a theme to make it match your Qt or GDK theme to make this look good. Now, as for the interface, we just got media controls at the top, artists on the top left, albums to the right of artists, and then songs under it. And then which is sort of a standard iTunes layout, I guess. And then we also have our sources to the very left, which has our music library, our file system, internet radio, and podcasts. There's also a mini player, which I guess looks cool. Although, how do I get this out? Here we go, home. And then there's also a presenter mode, which I guess might show visuals. Let me check. I don't know what the presenter mode does. But yeah, there is also, if we go into preferences, you can hide the status bar if you want. I think I mentioned there's podcast support, and you could change between Elisa and Pulse Audio or WAV file output. So yeah, it's kind of feature rich. I don't know, I wouldn't recommend nor did not recommend this one. Alright, so we have another music player that I'm going to have to try to pronounce, Guayadqeue. I'll just put it on screen. And yeah, it's yet another GDK-based music player. So for the interface, we got our media controls and stuff on the top left, and then our now playing under it. And then by default, we have our there's 5 tabs. There's My Music, Radio, Last.fm, Lyrics, which is online lyrics, and podcasts. Now, if we go into My Music, by default, it has sort of a iTunes view. It's called Library View, and it shows your genres, artists, albums, and songs. So if I double-clicked an album, it would start playing it. There's also an equalizer. There is, you can customize your volume. There's Smart Mode. I don't know what that does. And there's Last.fm, and the Last.fm tab just shows info about your music. But there's podcast support. If we go into, it does support Gemedo and Magnitude and stuff. There's also I already said there's podcasts. Overall, this is a pretty standard music player. Oh yeah, there's also album browser view, playlist view, and tree view. I like the album view the best, but yeah, this is a pretty standard music player. I'd recommend it if you want to check it out. It is pretty customizable, but yeah, check this one out if you want to. Alright, next we got Harmony. Now, Harmony is I think, Electron-based. Yeah, it's Electron-based music player, and it is very visually similar to iTunes. Now, it does cost money. You can use it for free, but then every time you open it, it will ask you to buy a license, similar to how WinRAR does it. So I think it's called Bagware. So it just asks you to buy it whenever you use it. Now, this is a cloud music player that allows you to listen to music from Last.fm, Deezer, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. This also supports Reddit and Hype Machine for some reason, and this does support scrobbling. Now, this also does support local music, which is what this video is about. So by default, it's just a list of songs. It does look a lot like iTunes. Now, if we go into settings on the bottom right, you can enable cover view, which shows the album art. There is a dark theme, which looks pretty nice, an arc theme, which looks okay, a darker theme, which also looks nice, and vibrancy, which just looks like a flatter white theme. And you can actually install custom CSS themes, which is cool. There's plugins for all of this different streaming services, and yeah. Now, this might be good if you have multiple streaming services for some reason and you don't want to use their native Linux client, or it doesn't have one. Anyways, although if you don't care about a pop-up asking you to pay for it, I would recommend paying for it if you don't want that pop-up. But if you're fine with the pop-up, then yeah, don't pay for it. Just use this for free. Next, we have JaJuk. Now, this is a Java-based music player, and I think it's similar to what aTunes was using for its UI, because it uses the same window borders and stuff, and it is Java-based. Now, its default UI looks basically the same as an early Windows Vista application, meaning it sucks. And yeah, now by default, it will have a simple interface, and you can sort it by album, name, artist, genre, length, and your rating. But there's also a tracks tab, albums tab, and a playlist tab, and then some info, a display and info tab, and it even shows Wikipedia stuff about it. I wouldn't really recommend this though, because it's just bad looking, it's buggy. This does have an alarm feature, radio support, a karaoke mode that doesn't work very well, and a DJ mode. And if we go into preferences, it does have, where is it? Themes somewhere. I forgot where they were. I'll find them. Here it is. So there are themes right here. There's Nebula, Nebula Brick Raw, Office Black 2007, Office Blue 2007, Office Silver 2007, Raven, which is the first good-looking theme, Sahara, and there's Twilight. Now, all of these themes suck, in my opinion, so yeah. Oh, there's actually more if you scroll up. Yeah, it's gonna take me a while to go through all of these, so I'm just gonna go with Graphite. Ooh, Graphite actually looks pretty good for once. And Graphite Aqua looks even better, so I'll stick with Graphite Aqua. Yeah, I would not recommend this program. It's buggy, it looks bad. Yeah, don't use this music player. Next, we have JaJuk, not to be confused with JaJuk. Now, JaJuk is a Qt-based music player with a pretty simple interface. Media controls at the top, playlist on the left, a collection of your music in the middle, and if I play a song, lyrics on the side. Now, this does have a tag guesser, whatever that means, and it also supports scrobbling, and it has a file renamer. Other than that, though, it's just a simple but reliable music player, and KDE users, I guess LXQT users also, to give this one a shot. It's very simple, works pretty well. Next, we have Kiss Music Player. Now, this one just lists your songs. It has your lyrics on the right. It doesn't have many features, and the albums are out of order. Plus, it looks really weird because the buttons use the same colors as your GDK theme, but then they also look like skeuomorphic kind of, which is weird if you have a flat GDK theme. So you'll have a modern music player with unmodern looking buttons. Overall, I'd avoid this one. Next, we have Lollypop. Now, this is definitely one of the most popular Linux music players, and I've known about it ever since I was a Linux user. As a matter of fact, my second video after switching to Linux was on Lollypop. Now, Lollypop is about to be updated, so I am using the release candidate version for this video in order to make this video age slightly better. So, yeah. Now, the media controls are at the top. It's got a nice blue banner for all your albums, and all of your albums and artists are put in a grid shape. Same with genres and playlists also. Now, there's also a tab called Playing Albums, which will show your now playing albums, and there's a search function. Now, if you click on the three dots on the bottom left, there's actually a lyrics area where you can get lyrics for your songs. If we go this does also support YouTube playback and stuff, so that's a cool feature. There's also suggestions, which will give you music suggestions based on what you're listening to. So yeah, pretty cool music player. This is one of the most popular, and it's well deserved. It's stable, it's feature rich, it looks good. Very good music player right here. Alright, now we have LXmusic, which is an XMMS2 GUI developed by the LXDE team. It is a very simple interface right here. There is a bunch of option for filters at the bottom. It lists your songs in the middle, and then your media controls at the top. This isn't a very feature-rich music player, but it is a very light and stable music player. So if you use LXDE or possibly even LXQT, even though this is GDK and not Qt, maybe check this one out, but I wouldn't use this on any other desktop besides those two. So, we got another elementary app. This one is on FlatHub, so you can install it on most elementary distros, but I installed this through the AUR and then just changed my GDK theme to elementary. And keep in mind, icon themes such as Adwaita and Breeze don't work properly on this one. However, Papyrus and the elementary icon theme do work well on this one. I really like its layout. It's got the media controls at the top, but it's also got all of your categories on the top with it. So you got your albums, artists, a tracks mode, playlists, and radio stations. It's very simple to use. If you click on an album, the songs from it show on the right. If you choose an artist, it will show all of the songs from that artist. Tracks just show info about the song once it's playing. Yeah, it's a very simple but very good music player. Now, if you're an elementary user, this is probably my favorite elementary music player, and I definitely recommend it. Now, if you're using another desktop, there is a flat pack, but it also will be using the elementary GDK theme instead of the normal one, which means it won't integrate well with your system. So, you could use it as a flat pack, but I wouldn't. Now, next we have Muine Music Player. Now, this is a music player. It's a very simple interface. You got your media controls on the top and its songs. To play an album, you have to click on Play Album, and it works, except it's only detecting 6 of my albums for some reason. Not sure why. So, I guess it almost works properly. If they fix that, this would be an alright music player, but because of this, I can't recommend this music player. Next we have Museeks, which is another Electron-based music player. I swear, if 2 more people think it's a good idea to make an Electron music player for local music and not cloud music, I'm going to develop an Electron allergy. As for the interface, it's got media controls at the top, and then a list of songs. It does have a pretty good dark theme, but other than that, it doesn't really have any features, except for a cool feature where you can change the speed of your music. That is kind of epic, but other than that, there aren't any other features, so yeah, don't use this one. Now we have GNOME Music, and this is one of my favorite music players because it's light, good looking, simple, and it integrates very well with GNOME, Budgie, and Cinnamon. GNOME Music is a very simple yet user-friendly interface. By default, it just has your albums, and you click on it, and it has the songs from the album. Or you could go to artists and just click on the artist on the left side, and it will show the songs. Or you could click on songs, and it's just a list of songs. Or you can click on playlists, and you can just play a playlist. I don't know what this is. This also integrates very well with the GNOME desktop. And because of that, if you're a GNOME user, definitely check this one out. Even though it's made by GNOME, this music player actually isn't very well known because of other music players like Lollypop and Banshee and stuff like that. However, do check this one out. It's simple, it just works very well, and that's why I've been using this music player for such a long time. Next, we have Elementary Music. Again, this is an elementary app, and it will be hard to run on non-elementary distros, and if you do get it running, it probably won't look good on your icon or GDK theme. So again, I'm using the elementary GDK theme for this. As for the interface, by default, it's your standard iTunes one, but there's also a mode where it has all your albums, and it will show the songs from it on the side. And there's a mode with just songs, and then there's also playlists in your library on the left. A very simple music player, yet it works well, and it's effective. Plus, if you thought Melody, Gadadidi Ka, I again forgot to pronounce it, Harmony, or Museeks looked like iTunes, you have not seen Elementary Music. This music player does come with Elementary, but it looks so much like iTunes, I swear. I would not recommend this to non-elementary users. However, some distros do package this one, like Fedora and Arch, both actually have this in their repos. Overall, try this if you're on elementary, because it's default, you might as well, but if not, stay away from it. Alright, so for our next player, we have Pragha. Now, I was using GNOME, however, I had an issue. I updated mid-video from 3.32 to 3.34, and now I can't do any gaming, so I actually am switching to Plasma until that issue is fixed, so I'm going to be using Plasma for the rest of this video. Anyways, this is Pragha, which is yet another GDK-based music player with a simple interface. You have media controls at the top, your library on the left, and your playlist on the right. The library is sorted by album, but the songs are sorted by your file name and not your track number, which kind of sucks, because then you have to add all of the songs manually if you want to listen to an album. You have to add all the files manually in the right order. It does have support for tune-in radios, Last.fm, there's a tag editor, and an equalizer, but its interface isn't good, so I wouldn't recommend this one. Next, we have QMMP. Now, the way this one works is you drag in your files, and then you can play it. This is a mini player, so all of your stuff is going to be sort of it's just good if you want like some small music player to have in the corner. Now, the playlist works pretty well. You can also click on this folder icon if you don't want to drag and drop files. It's pretty basic. It does have an equalizer, but that's really its only feature. But yeah, it's got an equalizer and a playlist manager. You can go to auto, and there is preset support, although there aren't any presets pre-installed. So this is kind of an advanced equalizer. Overall, it is Qt, so keep that in mind. There is some visualization stuff, so I can open up Project M visualization, and there's also an analyzer plugin, another visualization thing, so if I were to play music, here it is. Overall, check this one out if you want a mini player, although I wouldn't recommend this one. Next, we have Qoob, which is another Qt-based music player, which I really like. So it has a simple yet pretty good interface actually. So it lists all your albums on the left as well as your all music, and then it shows all the songs from that album. And then you can also set up playlists using tabs. Now, other than that, though, this is just a pretty simple music player. It works well. It's stable. There aren't really any bugs or anything. So check this one out if you're a Plasma user, because it is Qt. But there isn't really any standout features of this one. Next we have Quod Libet, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is another GDK music player. Its default interface is okay, although I don't like how it's people instead of artists. There are also media controls on the top. It's got your standard iTunes layout with your people, albums, and then songs. Although again, it's people instead of artists. However, this is one of the most feature-rich music players on Linux. For example, if you go in the browse, there's multiple interfaces. There's an album list, which I like, cover grid, which I really like, and an album collection, which is okay, I guess. I'm gonna go to cover grid. Now this has support for internet radio stuff, as well as podcasts, and support for SoundCloud. It also has support for plugins. And let me say it has a crap ton of plugins. So if we go to File and Plugins, as you can see here, we got a ton of them right here. So some of my favorites are Audio Scrabbler. Where is it? Here it is. The Equalizer plugin built in. There's a GNOME search provider, so you can access your music through the GNOME Dash. There's a lullaby mode, which is basically a bedtime timer, automatically stops your music. There's song notifications, which give you notification for your sound. Waveform seek bar, which is, I think, this right here. That is from a plugin. There's also web lyrics support, where it shows your lyrics. And there is even a plugin called Theme Switcher, which allows you to switch your GDK themes. So right now I'm on Adapta. I could switch it to Adwaita just like that, which is good if you're on Plasma or something and it doesn't look right. Again, I'm not a big fan of its interface by default, but I love how you can change it. Overall, this is one of the best music players you can get on Linux right now. Next, we have Rawsteel, which is another Qt-based music player. So you just drag and drop your music files to the left, and then you can play them. Now, the media controls are on the bottom, and the right has lyrics. The issue, though, is if your music doesn't have embedded lyrics, like mine doesn't, it doesn't support online lyrics, which means that you just have half your music player with lyrics saying it's not found. The buttons are also way too big, and they don't look good on dark themes, so overall, I'd stay away from this one. Good old RhythmBox. RhythmBox is one of the most popular music players for Linux, and it has an okay interface with your standard iTunes layout with artist, album, and songs. You can also add playlists and such. You got your library stuff on the left. It does support podcasts, Last.fm, Library FM, and radio stations. And yeah, that's really it. Makes sense it's stock because it's simple, it works. That's probably why a lot of Linux distros include this one as the default. Next we have RhythmCat. So you drag and drop your music, then you got your media controls at the top, playlists on the side, there's a tab for an equalizer, and there's plugin support if we head over to plugins. It's got lyric crawler, lyric show, tag editor, notification, pop-ups, lyrics editor, desktop lyrics, and music locator. It also has a mini mode, so if you want sort of a miniature look, let's see if I could find it. Can I show the player now? And the mini mode doesn't work, so that's great. I also saw themes in appearance, but also the themes don't work for me, so rip. Overall, give this one a shot if you want something buggy, I guess. It's kind of buggy, I wouldn't recommend this. Next we have Sayonara, I think, and it's another one of what I call an iTunes style music player. It's got your media controls on the top right, as well as playlists and the queue under it. And then you got your artists, albums, and songs, and then your genres on the very right. But you can also show albums, covers, and have it like that, which I prefer. Now this is a Qt music player, so it might not look good on desktops like GNOME. However, if you go into Preferences and User Interface, There's a dark mode, which does not obey Qt themes at all, and you could use this on GNOME if you don't have Qt properly set up. There is also plugins. There's a level plugin right here, so if I were to play something, I turn the volume down, but there would be your levels right here. If it wanted to play, there we go. There's also a spectrum, there's an equalizer, streams, which I think allows you to listen to radio podcasts, which lets you listen to podcasts, playlist, which selects you playlists, an audio converter, bookmarks, I don't know what that does, speed and pitch, so this will allow you to change the speed and pitch of your song, which is kind of a cool feature, broadcast, which allows you to start kind of a radio show, kind of, and then finally gapless playback and crossfader, so this helps you enable either of them. Overall, this is a very cool and featured-rich music player. It looks good on both GNOME and Plasma because of its dark theme, and this is probably one of the best Qt music players, so check this one out. Next, we have Strawberry. Now, this is a music player aimed at audiophiles, and it's a fork of Clementine for audiophiles, made after the creator of Clementine said he didn't care about audiophile things. Its interface is almost identical to Clementine, although there are a few changes, and I'm just going to go over those. Instead of an artist and song info tag, there is just a contacts tab which shows info about your songs. A lot of services Clementine supported were removed, but Strawberry does have support for the streaming services Tidal, Qoob, and Subsonic. And also, Strawberry doesn't have a cool background for its sidebar, instead it's just a gradient. And also the mood bar is disabled by default, but it can still be enabled. However, the biggest feature probably is that in settings, you could change the backend engine, which is a cool feature just in case you don't like GStreamer the way it sounds or something. Overall, I'd use Clementine if you are a more general user, and I'd use Strawberry if you are an audiophile. Next, we have Tauon Music Box, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is a Python-based music player that uses the proprietary BASS engine, although GStreamer is still an option you can enable through settings. Its interface by default is just a list of songs with artist info at the top. However, it's very easy to change. You can add your album artwork on the side, have album artwork, songs, and artist info. Just have, that was what I was at earlier. There's a now playing screen. And there's this one, which I actually can't tell the difference between this one. Oh, I see. So it allows you to have more than one column and allows you to enable artist info. So that's cool. Now, if we go in the settings, there's support for themes. So Sky is the default one, but there's also Terrible Vape, Wasp, Manduro, Astro, Carbon, Cucumber Splash, Lavender White, Lime, Rose, and back to Sky. You can also adjust stuff like have the album artwork used as a background. Overall, this is a pretty cool music oh yeah, there's an equalizer too you can get here, but there's no presets. And overall, this is a pretty cool music player, and it is pretty feature rich. It does use the proprietary engine, although like I said earlier, GStreamer is supported. So if you're interested in this, check this one out. Next, we have Babe, which is a Qt music player designed for KDE users, and it works pretty well. It's got a menu bar at the top, media controls on the top right, where you hover over your album art and it shows the media controls, which I think is a nice way to do it. On the left, there's a sort of a navigation area with your songs, which just shows a list of your songs. Album, which shows an album grid, and then if you click on it, your songs show on the bottom. Artists, which show an artist grid, and if you click on it, your songs are at the bottom. And then playlists, which has your playlists on the left, and then your songs in the playlist to the right of it. There's also an info button, which will show similar artists, info about the artist and album, and lyrics for the song. There's also a playlist mode, which just shows your media controls and your current playlist / queue. And there is a mini mode, which just shows your media controls, which is a pretty nice touch to this already nice music player. Overall, if you're a KDE user, give this one a shot. And last but not least is Xnoise. So by default, just lists you albums, and then when you click on an album cover, it will show all of the songs. And then it will also show your queue, and then to go back, you click on the album artwork name. You can also sort it by artist, album, genre, and year. And yeah, it's pretty simple, but you can also pretty simple. There is an equalizer too, and whoops, it does have it also has an equalizer, and it does show presets, and there are some out of the box, so that is a welcome feature. And if we open up preferences, it's not very customizable. You can get downloaded lyrics, Last.fm, and Macleod, but overall it's not that customizable. But I still like it. It's not my favorite, but it's not the worst. So check this one out if you are looking for something light. Alright, so thank you for watching this super long video. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for how long it was, and I'll see you in the next video. Please consider donating because this took me forever again, and like and subscribe.